Nobody gave you a chance to do much of anything this year. And the team, despite the media picking you last, I did a little bit better than that, but not too many rungs higher than that. 4-1. Yeah, sure. TCU is probably not what many people expected. And possibly, of course, Pitt is taking a turn for the worse, but still impressive to reel off 3 wins against Power 5 opponents.
No doubt about it. I mean, and anytime you're holding Power 5 teams to 21 points or less, I don't care who it is, really, you're going to win a lot of football games doing that. Texas Tech, we know offensively, is still a good group. They put up 30 on Oregon, and that's a top 30 defense. So I think there's a lot to be shown for that game, even though it was in a monsoon. And they rounded back into form last week offensively as well. Pitt, yes. I think they are definitely. I don't think probably not too many people would have figured the slide that filled Jerkovich, as I call him, because he's a Pitt person, obviously. Jerkovich. We'll go with Jerkovich. The slide from 2019 till now. Yeah. The slide from 2019 till now, I don't think very many people saw that coming and really shell shocked, I think, from those hits, the most hit quarterback in football last year. But Neil Brown has done an incredible coaching job, and I think he definitely is going to warrant, if he keeps on going this direction, Big 12 Coach of the Year honors, possibly, and even get some national looks at that. It depends on the final record, of course. I think if this team finishes anywhere in the 9-3, 10-2 range, I think both of those could be options for him, based on he was the hottest coach coming in football coming into this season. And I think a lot of people, even Kirk Herbstreit, making jokes on the Pat McAfee show, calling him a lame duck coach. Anybody but West Virginia, the 14th preseason prediction, the anonymous head coach that came up before the season and said, this is a MAC roster. And so this team has really rallied behind a lot of that. And anytime, I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced any kind of bullying or any kind of doubt towards your way, but anytime something like that happens and you have self-belief, there's a lot that can really happen for that. And I think this team is bought in. One thing, when I had Brendan Baker on the show, one thing he really pointed out was there's a lot that Neil Brown gets right. On the field hasn't been the greatest, but culture, buy-in, are two things that he knocks absolutely out of the park year in and year out. And I think we're seeing some of that now. Now, do we want to go too far to one side and say that this is a Big 12 championship team? I'm not saying that either. But you can't deny Neil Brown is doing one of the best coaching jobs in the country right now, and we're very proud of him.
So the Mountaineer perspective on West Virginia football, on Neil Brown specifically, has changed considerably in about 3 weeks.
Funny how that works, isn't it? I called for his job at the end of last year, and I think it culminated in 4 years of losing. And as you know, you're a very astute historian on college football. That was as bad a 4-year run for West Virginia, and we don't claim to be a national championship contending team year in and year out. But I think how people look at Wisconsin year in and year out is kind of how we felt about ourselves over the course. And I think we've proven to be that kind of possibility each year in, year out, up until these past 4 years. And it's been very frustrating. I think a lot of us were spoiled by the previous 20 years. I mean, it is what it is with that. And so I think a lot of fans were frustrated. Neil didn't get, and by the way, Neil didn't get any NIL help this past year. Probably some, Bob Huggins got it all. And you could see with that number 1 overall basketball class, the number 1 transfer portal class in the country, Neil Brown really had to select players that felt like fit the system, along with Jordan Leslie, who has had a top 50 defense 4 out of the 5 years he's coached there now, if this continues. I think, a lot of it was warranted, but how things change in 3 or 4 weeks, like you said. Winning really does heal a lot of those ailments. And it's a great place to be. It's a great feeling. It's been so bad, so we're really happy to be 4-1 going into the bye week. It was a really tough game. A video I'm going to be making probably today or tomorrow is on TCU, and there were a lot of cheap shots in that game. And Coach Brown addressed that in the press conference today. Our left tackle Wyatt Milan went out of the game due to being poked in the eye after the whistle was blown. On tape, it's on tape. I'm sure they might review that. Tomas Remak goes out of the game with a lower leg injury on a play that was after the whistle on a field goal. There's a few things that a lot of us don't agree with. I know that's a little off topic, but just there was a lot of challenges going to TCU and playing them guys at night. Sonny Dykes hadn't lost the game. So I think we're really proud of the group.
I told Mark, I'm glad we don't play you because you're the type of team that can dictate. If you could dictate the pace, could beat us because you just hold on the ball the whole time. But
right, our offensive line is capable of running it against anybody. We did it against Penn State, and they've got an excellent defense. If we had any offense to complement our defense in that game, we probably could have walked out of there with a win. It was definitely to be had. James Franklin obviously scores the backdoor touchdown as time is running out, and that covered the spread. And it looks worse than it actually was. It was actually a close game against Penn State. We really fought hard in that game, but they're a really good football team. Drew Aller, I think, was a lot better than a lot of us thought he was going to be. He's very similar to your guy and what he looked like coming out, just slinging it right off the rip. So I'm really impressed with them. But I think if you look at our schedule and how it lines up, and what a day for the bye week to come in this week. Aubrey Burks, who is a preseason All-American at safety, scary moment against TCU. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the game. But,
I watched the second half.
It looked like he broke his neck at one point in that game. He's actually walking, thank goodness. Trey Lathan, who was in that recruiting class with C.J. Donaldson, unfortunately breaks his leg against TCU. Thank God we've got what we think is an up-and-coming will linebacker to replace him. And so, and then those offensive linemen that were hurt will be back. So, you come out of this thing almost unscathed. You lose one player. I think we can definitely bounce back as a defense. And that defense is definitely our calling card, obviously, in the running game. You look at the upcoming schedule. You've got Houston on a Thursday night against the Fighting Dana Holgersons. I think we win that football game maybe by a score or two. I mean, we're not the greatest offense, but I think we can definitely control the line of scrimmage on both sides in that game. And then you start to look at how the schedule lines up after that. UCF will be a tough game for us. I think BYU will be a tough game for us. The Oklahoma game is the hardest game left on the schedule. Cincinnati, I think, is a win. Baylor at the end of the schedule, although they looked better yesterday, I think is a win. When I looked at our schedule this year, we were able to replace Kansas, Texas, and Kansas State with Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, I mean, I was glad not to see you on a schedule. I don't care. Even when you guys haven't been good, I didn't want to see you on a schedule. There's still a bunch of 5-star guys in that roster every year. So, I mean, there's always going to be a position on the field where they're just going to be better than you at. And you've got to shade towards that side of the field, or you've got to give this lineman help towards that guy. Well, this year, it's at multiple spots. And even our offensive line would struggle with that defensive line that you guys have, as they did last year. But they also struggled with the tech front last year and dominated them. They've gotten a lot better. But still, that front that you guys have, in my opinion, you could argue is a strength of your team, defensive front.
Yeah, I've said to Mark multiple times, I think our front seven's one of the best, if not the best in the country, because our linebackers are playing really well too.
It's good. You guys have got three picks, probably first 2 rounds on that front seven.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know Tavondre Sweat's been mocked for the first round by everyone I see. He's basically a first round pick at this point, unless he gets hurt. I think he'll end up being a first round pick. Byron Murphy's interesting. I actually think he's got the higher upside, but I don't know where he's going to get drafted. I haven't seen any mock draft with first round. I've seen a couple with second. So, I mean, if they give him enough money, he may come back, because it's like Tavondre Sweat came back. He would have been probably a 4th round pick last year and made himself a lot of money. If Byron Murphy come back, he could probably, I mean, if he gets any better, he's going to be a first round pick, because I think it's more consistency with him. But he was the best game I've ever seen him play was this year versus Baylor. They couldn't block. They were double teaming me. He couldn't block. I mean, split double teams, multiple tackles for loss, 2 sacks in the game. He's just a beast. Our defensive tackles are definitely the strength of our team, and even the edges have been playing pretty good too.
No doubt about it. Our strength, I think, is just we play 11 guys on the defensive line, and there is almost no drop off from 1 to 11. The first time since I've been a fan of West Virginia, we've been able to say that. And it's them guys have really recruited. We picked up a guy from Penn State, Batoma Mulba, who was just sitting. He wasn't playing because Penn State's style of defensive tackle right now is more athletic, penetrating style of defensive tackle, and this guy is a road grader. Especially if you play a 3-down front, he eats blocks alive. And I talked to Israel Chumba, the left tackle at Penn State before the season, and said, what's this kid going to be all about? And he said he is the stoutest run defender on the Penn State roster. And that has shown to be true for us this first few games of the season, just talking about defensive fronts. And he's been a huge surprise, and doesn't show up in the stat sheet a lot, but man, he eats blocks alive and eats centers alive so far this year.